The United Kingdom is holding its first July general elections in over 75 years on Thursday. Around 46 million voters are eligible to choose 650 lawmakers for the House of Commons, with results expected to be announced throughout the night and into the Friday. More details in our next report.
The United Kingdom is voting on Thursday to elect a new government. The ruling Conservative Party, currently led by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, is widely expected to lose power after 14 years. According to most opinion polls, Keir Starmer's Labour Party is set to unseat the Conservatives, scripting a landslide victory. Keir Starmer, leader of the main opposition Labour Party, is a former human rights lawyer and chief public prosecutor. He succeeded left-winger Jeremy Corbyn as leader in April of 2020. Supporters see him as a pragmatic, safe pair of hands, ideally suited to managing Britain back from economic decline. Currently, the biggest concern for voters is their deteriorating living standards, failing public services such as the NHS, rising immigration and housing shortages. The cost of living crisis, fueled by high inflation and slow economic growth, has made many Britons feel financially worse off. Immigration remains a contentious issue. Housing affordability, especially for younger voters, is another critical concern due to high property prices and rents. The Conservatives have been in power in the UK since 2010 under various prime ministers. Rishi Sunak is seeking his own mandate from the British public, having been installed as Conservative leader and therefore Prime Minister by his own MPs in October of 2022. He succeeded Liz Truss, who was ousted following just 49 days in power. The ex-financier has been credited with steadying government following the chaos of the Truss and Boris Johnson premierships and for halving inflation. He has failed, though, to meet several promises, including cutting health waiting lists, stopping irregular immigration and sending migrants to Rwanda. Experts believe that Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party are also amongst the key players in these elections, as he contests from Clacton-on-Sea to seal his first seat in Parliament. The Conservative Party promises tax cuts amounting to £17 billion annually, increased public health spending and a cap on immigration. They plan to boost defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030. While Labour focuses on wealth creation, encouraging investment and improving infrastructure through a 10-year strategy, they propose setting up a state-owned clean power company to enhance energy security, funded by a windfall tax on oil and gas giants. The results of the UK elections will start pouring in tonight and into Friday. All eyes are on who will be the next Prime Minister of the country. Nupur Praveen's report for DD India.
DD India's Stuart Smith joins us live from London. Hi Stuart, now the future of Rishi Sunak as Britain's Prime Minister clearly hangs in balance. What is the latest? Are there going to be any last minute surprises, or is it still a foregone conclusion that it's going to be an unprecedented history in the electoral history of UK when Conservatives will be out?
Well, after the last week, the polls did show a slight narrowing in the lead that Labour previously had. It was 20 percentage points ahead of the Conservatives. Just before polling ended earlier this week, pollsters were suggesting that lead has now decreased to 17 percentage points, with much of the gains going to smaller parties like the Liberal Democrats or the more right-wing Reform UK. Now, that could mean that there is a slight surprise on its way. It could mean Labour's majority isn't as large as expected, but pollsters do still believe a Labour government and a Labour majority, and a significant Labour majority, is the most likely outcome. What's really in question here are a couple of things. How much the Tory vote will be split by Reform UK, another right-wing party. Say there's a constituency that has largely Conservative voters, but if their vote is split between the Conservatives and Reform UK, then their vote could end up in that constituency going to Labour. The other thing that's questionable is to what extent turnout will end up causing headaches
Yes.
for both main parties, whether Conservative voters who would otherwise have voted decide to stay at home thinking the election's effectively lost, or if Labour voters get complacent and think the election is effectively already won.
Yeah, right. But what is the mood really like in the Labour camp? Like you mentioned about the low voter turnout, seems to be a bit of a tricky situation where there is a sort of apprehension that the low voter turnout could sway the so-called predicted landslide win for Labour.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of caution in the Labour camp. Every time there were these polls suggesting a huge Labour majority, Keir Starmer, the potential future Prime Minister, but for now currently just the leader of the Labour Party, was eager to say that he is not resting on his laurels. He does not believe this is a one election, and even on the last day of campaigning, he was touring the length and breadth of Britain, from Wales to Scotland to Western England, to try to make sure not a single vote is lost. Labour has been burned before by election predictions and has notably in 2019 done the worst in its history for 85 years, a significant failure then. So Keir Starmer is not relaxing, and I expect while there's excitement in the Labour camp, there'll still be nervousness about what exactly is going to happen.
All right, so overall, the big picture, Stuart, we are really looking at a change of guard, outclassing more than a decade rule of Conservatives. What is your understanding? What really, if at all, there is a debacle of Conservatives, what could be the main reasons attributed to that?
For Keir Starmer, it'll be a question of trying to make sure that his majority is considered large enough that he can effectively impose and get through Parliament all the policies that he has promised in his manifesto. There could be some issues, for example, on the most controversial issues with some of his MPs rebelling. It's unlikely in a new government that would be a problem, but particularly for Gaza, Palestine and Israeli issues, the Labour Party has struggled to maintain cohesion throughout the election campaign, and that's something that could get worse. As to other foreign policy issues, Keir Starmer has largely sided with the Conservative Party when it comes to how the UK should approach Russia and Ukraine. Support for that is expected to continue with Keir Starmer off to the NATO Leaders Summit in just a few days if he does make it into power as Prime Minister. And another one that Keir Starmer is particularly interested in, according to the manifesto, is the India Free Trade Agreement. He has said that the Conservatives have underdelivered and overpromised on that one. He says the Labour Party would attempt to get through that deal, which has taken over 2 years to negotiate and seems stuck at the 14th round of negotiations.
Well, it's just a matter of hours now, perhaps, when the picture will be more clear. Thank you very much as of now, Stuart Smith, for joining us live from London. Pleasure talking to you.